Podcasts on UNC-TV.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
As the North Carolina General Assembly begins this year's long session, our state is facing a projected $3.7 billion budget shortfall. I recently sat down with former North Carolina Governor Jim Holshouser to discuss how that shortfall might impact higher education, which plays a major role in our state's economy. Governor James Holshouser, welcome back to North Carolina Now.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm glad I could be here.
You are an emeritus member of the University of North Carolina Board of Governors. The University of North Carolina has a new president taking the helm this month in Tom Ross. At the same time, the state of North Carolina is facing a projected budget shortfall of around $3.7 billion. During this time, how do you assess the state of the university as the state itself is facing such a big budget hole and as a new president comes on board?
I think it's going to be one of the most challenging times the university has faced, just as it is the rest of state government. I say the rest of state government, the university may not be a part of state government, but it definitely depends on university revenues coming from the legislature. And I have a long time association with President Ross, going back to his days as Superior Court judge a long time ago, and he's had a great background to prepare him to be president of the university, and I think he will do extremely well. At the same time, it's not a secret, and I've told him the same thing. He takes the reins at one of the most challenging times the university has faced, and it's going to stretch all of us just about as much as we can handle to deal with the new economics right now.
How do you think the University of North Carolina will be impacted by the projected budget shortfall?
I think there's no question but that the university will be adversely affected, and I have to say I don't see that the legislature has much choice about that. And I think we're going to have to just do our very best job to figure out some new ways to cut that we hadn't already. We've already cut, several $100 million out of the continuing spending cycle for the university. So it's not that we haven't been trying. We have, but there's going to have to be some more still to come.
As someone who has served as governor of North Carolina, has delivered his own budgets to the General Assembly, how do you put this budget shortfall into perspective?
It's like nothing that any of us who are alive have seen before, Shannon. It's easy to talk about it in big numbers. You say 3, 3.5, 4. You put it into perspective that that's a 15 to 20% cut at one time. And there aren't many state agencies or part of the educational system of the state that aren't going to be hurt by it. I think the legislature will do its very best to try to minimize the impact on the classrooms for the public schools and the community colleges and the university. Looking at the numbers myself, I don't think that's possible to do it without any damage at all. So I think the legislature and the governor's got to come first, and I don't envy any of them.
As you take a look at the state's economy and how it's changing, what role do you see for higher education here in North Carolina?
Ironically, it's maybe way more important than it ever has been before. The university has always been the institution that I think has set North Carolina aside and above the rest of the country. And I think because of what's happening with the economy, it's going to play an increasing role. Our big three of tobacco, furniture, and textiles has changed dramatically, and we're seeing more and more biotech, genomics, all this kind of thing coming into play, and a lot of technology applications, and the university and the community colleges are going to be essential in taking the state where it needs to be. And I'm still convinced that we can lead the nation if we, I won't say if we play our cards right, if we figure out the right buttons to push and where to put the resources.
Another area of the state's economy that's seen a lot of change is health care. You have been doing a lot of work over the past few years in bringing health clinics to rural areas of the state. Tell us about this project and why it's so important to you.
Well, rural health has been a challenge for our state ever since I can remember. And it's not just that there aren't enough doctors, it's that they don't always go where you need them. There have been some real efforts made, and Jim Bernstein during his lifetime probably served the state as well as anybody I've known in terms of helping to solve those distribution problems. We still got the same challenge, and I fuss a lot about all the money from Washington, but Washington is putting some money now into free clinics around the country, and certainly we're going to see a bunch of that money coming to North Carolina. I think the advent of telemedicine has also made a big difference, where AHEC and the med schools at East Carolina and Chapel Hill have direct contact now with doctors out in the field, have also made a big difference. It's not as much of a disadvantage to live in a rural area from a medical care standpoint as it used to be. We still got a ways to go, though.
What other issues and trends are you following at the start of this new year that the rest of us need to be aware of and that we're going to hear about over the next 6 months or so?
Well, I think anybody who watches the national economy knows that's the elephant in the room, and you can't leave that alone. I'm very concerned that Congress still has not been willing to come to grips with it. Erskine Bowles, as you know, has been co-chairman of the Deficit Commission in Washington, and I think he and Alan Simpson nailed it on the head when they said to the Congress and to the country what needs to be done. And I think that report will be a good place to start for Congress, if Congress is got the guts to stand up and do it. It's hard, and they're not used to doing it, but I think it's the one absolutely essential thing they owe the country this year.
Finally, any advice that you would give to state leaders as they are trying to find some solutions to these tough economic times?
Well, I think you have to go back and get back almost at ground zero in looking at some of the state budget problems. There's been talk about zero-based budgeting, and I think that clearly has a potential to help us go back and look and see if every program that was worthwhile and needed at the time it was started is still worthwhile and needed. Because clearly times change, and things that made sense 20 or 30 or 50 years ago don't make sense anymore. So that's at least a place to start.
Governor Holshouser, as always, thank you so much for coming and sharing all of your time and your thoughts with us.
Thanks a lot.
Podcasts on UNC-TV.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.